I'm unboxing something that I've wanted for a really, really long time. One of my bucket list guns, and it's not a bucket list gun because it's specifically very, very expensive. I mean, it was pretty expensive, but it's not like unaffordable or anything like that. But for what you're getting out of it, what a lot of people would say what you're getting out of it, it's a lot of money to pay. But for me, for someone that likes stuff like this, it's something I've wanted for a long time. So you guys know that I really like my Ruger LCR. I carry this a lot. Pulled that from my pocket. What makes mine special is that it's not a 38 Special or a 357 Magnum. It is a 327 Federal Magnum. Holds 6 shots. And I've really grown to appreciate that cartridge because, you know, when you get a revolver in 327 Federal Magnum, what you can fire in is pretty versatile. You can fire 327 Federal Magnum, you can fire 32 H&R Magnum, 32 Smith & Wesson Long, 32 Smith & Wesson, and in a pinch you can fire 32 ACP. Whenever somebody's on the fence about 327 Federal Magnum, I like to mention that 32 Smith & Wesson Long is the reason why you should cross over and get it, because 32 Smith & Wesson Long is a very available cartridge. You can find it at pretty much any gun store. I know a lot of people have told me they can't, but every gun store I've ever went to, I found 32 Long in it. And you can shoot those in a 327 Federal revolver. So that makes it a viable option in my mind. But what I got here, you may have guessed that it's a Ruger. So I'm going to show you what I got, because Ruger really is the main company that really promotes 327 Federal Magnum and still makes guns in them. So what I got here is a Ruger SP101 with a 4.2 inch barrel. Let me show some close-ups here. This thing is a 6-shot, just like my LCR. 6-shot of 327 Federal Magnum. Has a 4.2 inch barrel, has some high-vis front sights, it has some adjustable rear sights. Thing weighs 29.5 ounces, so it's pretty heavy for what it is. It's got some really nice wood grip panels in this rubber grip that's standard on a SP101. It's actually a pretty small revolver. If I compare it to my Smith & Wesson 686, this thing looks tiny even though the barrel lengths are the same. It's just a very, very small frame revolver, but very, very nice. Got our push button release here, which I'm accustomed to because my LCR has the same one. So I've wanted this for a really, really long time, just to try to get the best ballistics I can get out of 327 Federal Magnum out of a handgun. So this is actually not my first unboxing of this. I unboxed this yesterday, but right from the gun store I had some problems, and I'll condense basically what the problems were. It was very, very dirty, and it had some burrs on the internal parts and on the ratchet star here. So it was causing the trigger to stick. So I did unbox it. I did some first shots fired. I also had some issues because I couldn't adjust the rear sight out here in the field. But when I took it home and I cleaned it up really good and deburred the whole thing and got the sights adjusted, everything seems to be fine right now. So I want to send a special thanks to one of my Patreon supporters, Calamity Jane, because I was basically pretty low on ammo and I wasn't going to be able to do this again. She sent over some funds and I was able to pick up some more 327 Federal Magnum ammo at my local gun store, and they had it in stock. Some 100 grain American Eagle. I have some other ammo out here, some 32s, 32 longs, 32 ACP. I might run that through this. So very, very nice gun I've wanted for a long, long time. So without further ado, let's see what I can do with my first shots with this thing. All right, before I do some first shots, I just want to show that it does fit this holster. This is a DeSantis for a Smith & Wesson 686, 4-inch barrel. Fits it pretty good. It is a little bit loose. Comes out just a little bit from the front there, but overall, a close enough fit that I would actually use that to carry it in it. So let's get around to doing our first shots now. All right, I am 7 yards from the target, so got some Federal American Eagle 100 grain jacketed soft points. It's pretty much the standard load for this revolver, so let me fire some rounds single action. I may have to adjust these sights again, but we'll see where they're hitting. 7 yards. All right, I'm not really sure where that hit. Oh, hit a little bit low, so I probably will have to adjust these sights a little bit. Let me pull out my little screwdriver and raise those up just a little bit. All right, I moved it up a few clicks. See if that helped. All right. All right, not too bad overall. It looks like, I'm glad to see, some moving a little bit to the right and some a little bit to the left. That would indicate it's probably me when it comes to the windage. But I'm gonna move this a little bit up, just a little bit more. And here's another thing that's kind of neat. We'll check our case ejection though. This is one of the problems that a lot of times these guns will have, is they won't eject very well. Perfect case ejection. So my LCR does not eject. Actually, one of my Patreon supporters, Hillbilly Scholar, sent over a chamber hone for my LCR 327, and that actually polished out, and it's much smoother now. I was thinking maybe I'd have to use on this, but it looks like I don't have to. But here's the speed loader for my LCR. Let's see how this works. A little bit of issue on that grip, but works well enough. So let me fire a few more single action and see if this elevations went up a little bit more. Let me fire a few double action now, see how that double action pull is for me. All right, let me try the double action trigger on this. I hear that these are really bad, and it's been so long since I had one of these that I can't really remember how bad they are. A lot of people will replace the hammer spring immediately, but we'll see what I think of it. So double action, see what this thing does for me. So I pulled one really, really high just because the trigger has a little bit of stacking that I'm not used to. So, a Smith & Wesson goes off long before this happens. Like, I was messing with my Smith & Wesson 686 last night, and you pull it back to a certain point, and your trigger press is maybe halfway in, and then it fires. As with this, it goes longer and longer and longer that the hammer is moving back. So it's got a very, very long, and then it keeps going and keeps going. So it stacks to the point where I think it should have fired, and then I'm kind of like gripping it to catch that recoil, and then it just, like, I pulled the shot high. So I have to get used to this again. I don't necessarily think it needs its weight of the trigger lowered necessarily. I just have to get used to it. So now I'm really curious though, what will be some velocity increase. So I'm just going to test that American Eagle, see what my LCR will give with the 1.875 inch barrel, and then with this that has over 2 inches extra of barrel travel, will that make it a lot faster? So let's set up the chronograph and do that. All right, I'm loaded up with 327 Federal Magnum, 100 grain, jacketed soft point Federal American Eagle, and both my 1.875 inch Ruger LCR and my 4.2 inch SP101. So hopefully I can get some reads. I just ran some rounds over the chronograph with some 32 Smith & Wesson, picked those up fine. So we'll see what we get out of our little snub here with this American Eagle ammo. $12.43, $12.49, $13.21, $13.77, $12.43, $12.66. So that is not consistent at all. I don't know if it's the short barrel causing an inconsistency, but it's not particularly consistent. So 327 Federal, same cartridge out of a 4.2 inch barrel. Let's see what this does. 1494. 1506. Not very consistent again. No read. 1524. 1556. Let me run a few more. I'll keep going. I'm getting a little bit of blast coming back on my thumb from the cylinder gap. 1403. 1445. 1556. 1473. 1538. 1556. All right, so yeah, we had a pretty significant increase in velocity with that. You know, very inconsistent velocities, but I'm going to say that's the ammo because we had that inconsistency on both the short barrel and the little bit longer barrel. So yeah, I wish Federal loaded that a little bit more consistently, but we can see there's anywhere between a 200 and a 300 feet per second gain, depending on which shot, with 2 more inches of barrel, 2.3 inches more, something like that. So you're more than double the amount of barrel length, and that's really why I wanted this 4.2 inch, because I think we get a lot better ballistics out of it. So let me shoot the steel target and see how these do from some various distances. All right, 14 yards from the target. So I've mentioned it before, shooting this ammo out of the LCR is kind of like shooting 40 Smith & Wesson out of a subcompact pistol. It's less recoil than a 357 mag out of a snub, but definitely way more than a 9mm. So I'm interested to see with double action, how much felt recoil something like this has. So 14 yards from the target. Let's see what this does for me. All right, getting a little bit sticky here with rotation. And it's like the cylinder is getting dirty or something, where it's not really wanting to rotate as smooth as I want it to all of a sudden. So I have some Hoppy's Gun Medic out here in the field. I use that sometimes. You spray it on, it lubes it, and it dries really quickly. But the thing I'm encountering here is the cylinder, it kind of gets sticky, like it'll rotate and then it hits a sticky spot, then it stops. So every so often you're going to get this right there where it kind of stops. It seems to be less of a problem when it's closed than when it's open. Like this is empty, I can dry fire it several times without really much problem, but it does seem like every once in a while the trigger press right there, it's sticky. So I don't really know what would cause something like that. So I'll fire a few more here. All right, this pretty much shoot point of aim where I'm aiming, so not bad on that account. Let me back up a little bit. All right, so I think I know what's going on with the cylinder sticking. And, it's a completely separate problem than the original one that I actually fixed. And it makes sense because when I fixed that problem, I didn't have that problem repeatable when I was dry firing a whole bunch last night and when I was, dry firing it on the range and when I first fired my first few shots. No problem whatsoever. And then after maybe 40 rounds, I started to have a problem. So I looked up what that could possibly be, and actually the first result that came up was from one of my YouTube friends, Double Clutch or Grind 1962. And basically it made sense what was going on because I took care of the original problem, but while I was doing that, I cleaned the gun really, really well, and I saturated the whole thing with lubricant and whatnot. And then I put it back together, and then I didn't have problems. And then after firing it a while, I got a bunch of problems. And apparently what's going on is when I cleaned it, and I put it back together from fixing the original issue I had with the trigger kind of sticking back and having a little bit of burrs on the ratchet here. I over lubed this when I put it back together, and apparently, you know, the burnt powder and the unburnt flakes and everything else that goes on in firing got in there with that excess lube. So it's not quite like a Smith & Wesson where you can just lube it and it's not a big deal. Apparently with these revolvers, probably because the fit and finish is a little rougher, it caused an issue where that didn't rotate smoothly. But after I sprayed that Hoppies cleaner that's meant for quickly spraying out on the range, it did seem to take care of that problem. So I did blast that out apparently, and it seems to have fixed that problem because it's rotating freely now. But on the range, it just bound up and it would be loose and then feel like you're hitting threads or something. But then if you forced it through, you finally get it going. So it's kind of a problem, but not really a problem. You know, it's one of those things with it being kind of dirty. So I have to kind of relearn how to work with these SP101s because they seem to be a little bit finicky about a few different things, as where Smith & Wessons are just kind of like, I've never really had any problems with them. So I thought I'd cut in here and mention what was going on. And at this point, that stickiness is completely gone. So I don't know what the issue is with that, why that happened. After firing it some more, after using that cleaning lube, it was fine. So I want to see what we're going to get for single action from 75 yards now. Pretty far out, but I want to see how this thing will hit for me. So see what this will do. I think it's hitting a little bit high for me. Yep, definitely quite a bit high. So I'm not doing pretty good, very good from that distance. I think I only hit it once. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going. Or maybe I'm just flinching. I'm not really sure. This 5-star loader doesn't quite fit that. I lost a round somehow. So let me keep going. Let me try its double action from that distance. All right, so I don't know what is going on with that. Yeah, there's something about that trigger press that it's just really, really long. I don't know what the issue is with that. I don't know. So I'm definitely not used to Ruger revolvers. And again, that spin issue isn't a problem anymore. So I don't know. I think it's just a break-in period with this revolver. And I'm just dry firing this thing. It's empty. Just to make sure it continues to be smooth. I'm holding it right here. So I'm definitely making sure it's empty. Just every once in a while, one of those trigger presses is kind of weird. So I don't know what the issue is with that, but that's my unboxing and second shots fired. So again, thank you to my Patreon supporters for helping me through this, because, you know, people don't realize that it is not an easy thing sometimes for some YouTubers to do what they do. You know, there are a lot of them out there that have a lot of money, so picking up something like this isn't a big deal, but for someone like me, it actually is. And it's very difficult sometimes to get new guns and then buy the ammo. People think I'm a professional. I'm really not. I'm putting most of what I earn back into the channel. So it is difficult sometimes to keep doing these tests. But I try to look at it on a positive note. Well, I can kind of do what I love doing for free, basically. And I like coming out and shoot. And so, again, thank you to my Patreon supporters. And very interesting here. It's kind of a mixed bag with the first shots and unboxing and the second shots in the unboxing. Not nearly as smooth and trouble-free as what I've had with other revolvers. My Taurus 856 was really problematic, but in a completely different way. This is more of like things that seem like they can be fixed, little glitches, but still for the amount of money I'm paying, I'm not really happy with having any issues at all. So I may have to send this thing back into Ruger. It just depends on how it's going to continue to shoot for me over the next few days and weeks. So thanks for watching, guys. Very fun to unbox something like this I've wanted for a long time.